It's been 30 years since Quentin Tarantino put a whole new spin on the shape and sound and feel of motion pictures, both launching and reigniting careers in the process. I'm Leonard Maltin. Welcome to the Movie Guide, where today we're going to enjoy a tasty burger as we give you the facts about Pulp Fiction.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Movie Guide podcast, and we're very excited because today we're going to be reviewing one of the most iconic films of all time. I'm of course joined by one half of the Movie Guide, Mr. Guy Davis. How are you, sir?
Great pleasure to be here, Brendan Dando.
And the man himself, Mr. Leonard Maltin. How are you, Leonard?
I'm friggin' good.
Oh,
Considering the film we're going to be talking about today, I can't really do a potty mouth. And I don't speak that way. That's not my normal custom of speaking that way. But having just watched 2 hours or more of a Quentin Tarantino movie, I feel if I don't rough up my vocabulary a little, I'll be out of step.
I think there are some words it's okay to use from Pulp Fiction. There are certainly some that have aged badly, shall we say. But no, very, very influential film. I, of course, am dressed in my Bruce Willis finery today. You, of course, are speaking like a sailor on shore leave. But yes, we are talking about Pulp Fiction. Why are we talking about Pulp Fiction? Because, well, it's been 30 years, 3 whole decades since its premiere. It premiered in October.
Wait a minute. How is that? How is it 30 years, Guy?
You look away for 1 second and somehow you're smack dab in the 2020s. I don't know how time is slipping away from us like this, but, yep. 30 years since it premiered in October in the US, November here in Australia. But so we always begin by asking why. Why are we talking about Pulp Fiction? Of course, it's the anniversary, but 30 years on, why this movie? And why has it remained so resonant in the collective public consciousness?
Well, first off, because it's so good. It's just so darn good. Darn being a mild version of QT speak.
I'm glad we're doing the modified for TV version.
Well, very few other people are. Our mainstream network television here in the U.S. Has gotten more potty mouth with each passing year. Words that you never would have heard in the 60s, let's say, or that George Carlin used to refer to, are now commonplace, to my astonishment. Astonishment is a good word, though. It's a good trigger word for talking about this movie, because this movie presented us in the audience with an unusually violent and unusually foul-mouthed movie that was not linear. It told several stories, not always in strict sequence. And it introduced us to characters who were unlike any that we'd encountered before. It's a film that really put Quentin Tarantino on the map. Only unfortunate side effect of that was that so many people then tried to be like Tarantino. And I got real tired real fast of watching or trudging through movies like Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead and other films that thought they had the Tarantino touch, which they did not.
They certainly did not. I mean, the one that you mentioned, Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead, that's probably the best out of a bad bunch even. I mean, there are
a small compliment, Guy.
So many pale imitations that have just aged like milk. But but no one really had the Tarantino voice, the Tarantino style, the Tarantino approach. This film came along at it seems like a really rich and fertile time in American cinema as well, when you had all these new voices coming up. It seemed to correspond. Dano and I were talking about this the other day, and I mentioned it when I was talking about this on a radio station here in Australia, that Pulp Fiction felt like the cinematic equivalent of something like Nirvana dropping Nevermind a few years earlier. It felt like a very independent, rock and roll, almost dangerous kind of thing. It made cinema cool in a lot of ways.
It did, but at the peril of turning off a mainstream audience, which it did not do. In fact, it forced someone like me, and I'm basically a square, it forced me to accept and embrace things that I might not have just a short time earlier. The scene where they drive the hypodermic into Uma Thurman's heart my jaw was on the floor. And of course, it's been eclipsed now by other such scenes. But at that time, 30 years ago, no one had had the nerve to show something like that in a context that made sense. And that's the whole point of the film, is that it has an internal logic. All the interlocking pieces connect. And it takes time to figure out what the relationships are in some cases. But when you spread it all out afterwards, it all works.
That's the thing about Tarantino as well. I mean, he's like a master showman. He's an absolute ringmaster of this incredible circus that he's put together. But putting that aside, he's also just an incredibly disciplined and focused filmmaker as well. I mean, I think it's easy to maybe not disregard that, but sort of sideline it when everything is so showy and in your face and wildly entertaining and just this wild ride that you go on. It's almost easy to forget, oh, this guy really knows what he's doing and is really a student and a lover of making movies.
Well, famously, he worked at a video store for quite some time, along with his co-writer on this film, Roger Avery.
Yeah.
And he took in, or perhaps you should say inhaled, every film on the shelves of that store, so it seems, because he has an encyclopedic brain when it comes to movies. He really knows his stuff. And if he were only to recycle what he had seen, he'd be ahead of the game alongside or against other contemporaries of his. But he, on top of that, had his own imagination, his own point of view. So it's not just recycling. It's far beyond recycling. I remember when Kill Bill 1 or 2 came out, I forget which one, somebody was putting him down and talking about reuse of old Ennio Morricone soundtrack cuts, needle drops. It's like, well, if it's so easy to do that, then you try and see how well yours turns out, because it's not going to be anywhere near what Quentin can do.
That's right. I mean, he's not just recycling, he's distilling. Yeah.
Well put.
I'd love to get your first impressions of watching Pulp Fiction. First of all, tell me where you saw it. Did you you saw it with a crowd? I'm assuming. Did you see it with a paying audience or a group of sort of fellow critics and reviewers?
No, it was an audience, a media audience.
Yeah.
People who were writing about or covering films and television. And I can't remember exactly where I saw it, but I remember the impact it had on me. And one of the reasons it had that impact was I was not overly familiar with all of the cast members.
Right.
And one of Quentin's great strengths is casting.
Yeah.
Samuel Jackson had been in movies before. Ving Rhames had been in movies before. All the people that we meet along the way, none of them were beginners, but they all were shown to such great advantage here that it's as if he launched their careers, when in fact what he did was redefine their careers. The ultimate case of that was John Travolta. We in the LA Film Critics Association gave this film many awards, including Best Actor, to John Travolta. And he got up at it was the luncheon then. These days we do a dinner, but it was a luncheon then. And he got up to the podium and told this story, and I can tell it pretty accurately because I've repeated it to friends over the years. He said, okay, picture this. 2 years earlier or a year and a half earlier, he was shooting Look Who's Talking 3 in Vancouver. And he finished his day's work and got back to the hotel room where he was by himself. And he sat and pondered his career and said, well, maybe I should call my agent. Maybe there's something I can do in TV, which in those days was a big step backwards.
That's waving the white flag, isn't it? It's basically, I surrender.
Exactly. He broke out on a TV series called Welcome Back, Kotter. But now he had graduated, and I use that term advisedly, graduated to movies, to the big screen. And now he realized the air was out of the balloon. And he was feeling very despondent. And then Quentin Tarantino called him and offered him this part, which he made the most of in every sense of that term, and was now enjoying the rewards that came his way, awards and rewards for a job well done. And he and Samuel Jackson were such a great pair. They're so well matched, completely different characters, completely different approaches to those characters, but just right, just an odd enough couple for us to, embrace them. Samuel Jackson with his hellfire and brimstone dialogue. By the way, I don't think any of the Tarantino wannabes dared quote the Bible the way Tarantino did. But John Travolta really was rescued from the morass, the mire of mediocrity, film-wise, by this performance.
And yeah, he was someone that no one wanted. I mean, I don't know if it's an urban legend or what, but apparently the higher-ups at Miramax were like, well, we just worked with Daniel Day-Lewis, who just won an Oscar for My Left Foot. He's someone we could slot into this. I think he's kind of interested in Travolta. And Tarantino's just like, no, I want the guy who just filmed the third Look Who's Talking sequel. But honestly, you look at Travolta in the 70s and even in the 80s. You look at what he did in Saturday Night Fever or in Grease or in Blowout or in Urban Cowboy. It's like you understand why this guy was one of the biggest stars in the world. He is just incredibly charismatic, just holds the screen and holds your attention. But it's something that you really astutely pointed out, and something that I really love about Tarantino is how much he loves actors and how much
he does.
Yeah,
and they know it. And they appreciate it.
Yeah, and
they feel that passion that he has.
Yeah, because you look at the cast of Pulp Fiction, as you said, and I mean, it doesn't feel like, oh, we're getting the hot names du jour. He's really sort of handpicking people who, this person's great, and I want to show I want to show the world how great they are. Or this is someone who is just right for this part. Because I mentioned Bruce Willis earlier. I mean, the character of Butch Coolidge, I think, was sort of custom designed or written for Matt Dillon. And Bruce Willis is on the ropes at this stage as well in the early 90s. He's got a terrible string of bombs. This just reignites him. He just goes on an absolute tear through the rest of the 90s. Likewise, Travolta.
Oh, yes. I know something about Quentin and the way he operates because I was very friendly with Robert Forster, a very good actor who started off in the late 60s with a terrific performance in Haskell Wexler's So Medium Cool. Actually, this first film was Reflections in a Golden Eye, rather prominent bomb of the...
That's the one with Brando and Elizabeth Taylor, am I right?
Brando and Elizabeth Taylor, yeah, directed by John Huston, no less. But it gave him a start, and then he made Medium Cool, which is a great movie. Mm-hmm. And then his career died, or I should say it's up and died. And Robert, who was a genuinely nice man and a positive thinker, in fact, he used to go out and give lectures on Dale Carnegie-like on the power of positive thinking when he was utterly unemployed. He had a TV series that barely lasted one season, a detective show, and he couldn't get arrested. And then Quentin decided he was the man he wanted to star in Jackie Brown, his adaptation of the Elmore Leonard story. And people like Robert De Niro campaigned for that role. And Quentin said, no, I'm using Robert Forster. And he stuck to his guns. And talk about reigniting. He completely reinvented Robert's career. Yeah. And he worked like crazy after that. He was very employable because he was so damn good.
I'm really glad you mentioned Forster because that's one of, maybe even more than Travolta, Robert Forster's comeback story is probably one of my favorites in Hollywood history. Just how humble and grateful he was, and how much he sort of grabbed that brass ring when it came, and just, as he said, just worked consistently and worked in really, really good stuff for the rest of his career, for the rest of his life, essentially.
Yes, indeed. Never turned bitter.
Never turn bitter. This is good advice. We mentioned, we've mentioned the stars of Pulp Fiction. I mean, we've mentioned Samuel L. Jackson, Bruce Willis, John Travolta, Uma Thurman, who's iconic mainly because of not mainly because of the poster, but her appearance in the poster certainly helped. But I mean, that whole cast.
Everybody. Amanda Plummer and Tim Roth, who we meet in the first scene and meet again in the last scene. And Quentin himself, who plays Jimmy from Toluca Lake, which I will never forget because we lived in Toluca Lake at the time. And so we thought that was very funny. Harvey Keitel, who had worked with Quentin on Reservoir Dogs and who was perfect as this mid-level mob guy who knows how to literally clean up a mess. And Jimmy from Toluca Lake is played by Quentin, who had vague ambitions to be an actor at one point before he set his cap on writing screenplays. And he's fun. He's fun to watch.
Yeah. I imagine that's why he works so well with actors and why he wants to give people a shot as well. I think he's lived that actor's lifestyle and, realized that, your success or failure is just a turn of the card. So he wants to help people out in that way or give people their shot in that way. I think my MVP for Pulp Fiction, aside from the stars, is probably Christopher Walken. I've been a fan of that guy since, ever since I can remember. But this is going to sound awfully pretentious, but you look at the monologue that he has to deliver. You look at it on the page like, this is great writing. This is fantastic. Then you hear the way and you see the way that he delivers it. Again, awfully wanky on me, but it's like looking at the sheet music for something like A Love Supreme by John Coltrane and then hearing John Coltrane play it. It's like, this is just incredible. This is virtuoso stuff.
Christopher Walken is in a class by himself.
He's one of one, isn't he?
There are a number of people who do very good impressions of him with his distinctive speech and that hesitant cadence of delivering dialogue.
I'm certainly not going to do mine, Leonard. Don't ask me. Don't even ask.
Don't even ask.
That was pretty good, Leonard. Not bad at all. Let's stop this right now. Let's nip this right in the bud.
Yes. We'll spare our listeners any more of that. He is in a class by himself. He is a confident, talented actor who can't be pigeonholed. He won't be pigeonholed because he's capable of doing so much.
I think confidence, you can apply that to Tarantino as well.
Oh, for sure.
When we spoke about Shaun of the Dead a while back, I said that Edgar Wright was a very confident filmmaker. He's like, this is exactly what I want to put on the screen. This is exactly how I'm going to do it. Tarantino was like that on steroids, I think. Two films in, and he's just making this 2.5 hour sprawling, non-linear, as you said, walk among the lowlives of LA. And as we said, we're talking about it 30 years later. What do you think's behind its staying power? I mean, why are we still talking about it all these years on? Why are we still trying to capture that lightning in a bottle?
Well, for one thing, it still looks modern.
Yeah.
That club that they go to, the Jackrabbit
Slims? Yeah.
Jackrabbit Slims, exactly, that Travolta and Uma Thurman go to. That's a hell of a set. It still looks modern. It'd be a hip place to go today, or tonight, more properly. And the whole mindset of the movie is kind of one step beyond anything you could imagine or that anyone could concoct today. I haven't seen a film this provocatively original in a long, long time. And I think that's what keeps it fresh and contemporary. It doesn't look like a 30-year-old movie.
No.
It doesn't behave like a 30-year-old movie.
No, it seems like every time that there's an opportunity to make a creative decision, you could zig or you could zag, and he tends to zag.
Yes, he does. He sure does.
For a long time, watching Tarantino's movies, I was of a mind, this guy's a fantastic writer. It's a shame his direction is sort of pedestrian. It doesn't really sort of match up to the energy and the volatility of the writing. Now, I'm a notorious dumbass, so clearly I was wrong in that regard. Do you think he's as good a filmmaker, as good a director as he is a writer?
Well, he's so much the auteur of his movies. That's a word that goes in and out of favor, originally coined by our friends, the French, the French cinephiles back in the 50s, and popularized here by Andrew Sarris, the late great film critic and essayist. It was a word that writers hated, of course. Yeah. Screenwriters hate that word because it minimizes or actually shuts out their contribution to a movie by giving the director full credit for any movie that comes along. But when you have a writer-director like Quentin or like Alexander Payne or so many others who write their own screenplays, then there's more justification for using it. And Quentin puts his stamp, his indelible stamp, his recognizable stamp on everything he does. And that doesn't mean that I love everything he does, because I don't. But when he's on target, nobody can touch him. And Pulp Fiction is a great movie that was also a game changer. So not only was it and remains a head-turning movie that you could spin your head around like Linda Blair in The Exorcist watching this movie. And it's not a conventional action film. It's not a conventional love story. It's not a conventional meet cute romance. It's not a conventional anything. Nothing about it is conventional. Nothing about it is ordinary. Every facet of this movie is either special or unique.
Yeah, you've said something really valid. I mean, I'm trying to wonder where I'd actually put this on the video store shelf. I mean, I guess drama, but not really. And yeah, you're right. It's not an action movie. It's not a comedy. It's not a romance. It's none of those things, but it's all of those things. Yeah, it's the ultimate show bag. It's or the ultimate grab bag. Or the ultimate lucky dip.
Yeah, it is kind of a grab bag, isn't it?
Yeah, but in the best possible way. And I'm guessing that it really opened the door for studios, corporate and independent, to sort of take a chance on stuff that was kind of non-conformist. I mean, as you mentioned before, there were a lot of lesser films in its wake, in the wake of Pulp Fiction. But I think you also had studios and production companies taking a chance on these wild and crazy kids with their wild and crazy ideas.
Yes, a lot of dice were rolled in the wake of Pulp Fiction, and very few of them came up 7 or 11. I don't want to wear out that metaphor, but most of them were snake eyes, if I'm going to complete the thought.
Well, if we're gonna maintain this metaphor, I mean, Paul Thomas Anderson comes along a couple of years later with Hard Eight, and his namesake Wes Anderson as well. I mean, Bottle Rocket is a few years later as well. I'm guessing that they could sort of pitch that as like, oh, it's a bit of a crime caper with these people who are breaking the law, but going about it in an odd way. Subsequently, you get these interesting new voices. I mean, you've got some that.
I think this film may have opened that door. I can't prove it, but it may have opened that door for people like Wes Anderson and Paul Thomas Anderson and other writer-directors who had ideas that didn't fit into a formulaic category. And thank goodness, because they've proven themselves ever since, those great debut films of theirs.
And you can get in the door with that quirky, independent spirit, but you really have to show you have substance to have a career that's still going 30 years later, like Paul Thomas Anderson, like Wes Anderson, like Steven Soderbergh or David Fincher.
Or like Quentin.
Or like Quentin Tarantino, who he keeps saying that he's going to quit after he makes his 10th movie, but he never makes his 10th movie. Well, yes. I mean, I say never, but it seemed like the movie critic, the one that he was touting as his 10th and final movie, was almost going to get up and running there, but then he decided to pull the plug on that one and say, no, it's not quite right. I'm not ready yet.
Well, he's put a lot of pressure on himself. No one's imposing that on him. Of course, his sugar daddy, Harvey Weinstein, is not in a place to offer support just now. I don't know if that has anything to do with Quentin's inaction or not.
I think there's a share of sugar daddies in Hollywood who are willing to open their wallets for baby Quentin. I think we made it this far without talking about the soundtrack of Pulp Fiction, which again was another game changer. I'd be hard pressed to find anyone in my 20-something cohort back in 94 and 95 who didn't have that CD in their car or in their playing on their player at home. And it's kind of again a timeless soundtrack. It doesn't have the choice cuts of the early 90s or anything like that. It's like listening to the radio. It
is very much that. As soon as you said the words Pulp Fiction to me when we were planning on doing this show, the first thing that came into my head was Miserlou.
Yeah.
And Miserlou is not what you call a top 40 song. It's an old Yiddish ballad, I guess, done in
in surf guitar style.
Exactly, 60s California surfer style. Memorably used in this film.
What I remember was, seeing the opening credits of Pulp Fiction and going from Miserlou, having that the dial change on the radio and it goes into Jungle Boogie. I remember sort of like slapping my hands to my face like Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone. Can you do that? Are you allowed to do that in movies? Do you think Tarantino sort of writes his scenes or his sequences with that kind of music in mind? I mean, we talked a bit about the auteur theory before, and I don't think he would want to sideline his great collaborators, whether that's music supervisors or editors or DPs or anything like that. But I get the feeling music plays a big part in how he constructs his movies and his universe.
Absolutely. one of the people who followed in his trail or in his path, Wes Anderson, does select his music cues ahead of time and plays them on the set for his actors.
Oh, wild.
I don't know if that was inspired at all by what Tarantino did, but on the other hand, you can't not be aware of a film like Pulp Fiction as a young, aspiring filmmaker yourself.
No, he's one of the great. I'd say he's up there with Scorsese as one of the great users of pop music to set a tone, enhance a scene, just act as great sort of audio, not even wallpaper, but just a great adjunct to it.
Absolutely.
This is a film of great scenes. I'm wondering which one sort of stays with you when you mentioned, when I say the words Pulp Fiction, that guitar riff sort of leaps into your head. But when I say Pulp Fiction, what scene is the one that sort of leaps to mind first of all for you?
Well, the hypodermic, when Uma Thurman is overdosing, that's the first thing that comes to mind because it was so shocking. No other word for it. It was so shocking. After that, there's so many to choose from. The dance scene.
Yeah.
The dance scene on the dance floor with Travolta, who, of course, as the star of Saturday Night Fever, where he unforgettably boogied the night away.
Yeah.
It's a moment, and everybody knew that it was going to be a special moment when he got on the dance floor again, even if he wasn't doing anything remotely like Saturday Night Fever. But he and Uma Thurman look good together, that's for sure.
It's like it was almost... I remember seeing it when it premiered, and yeah, there's that lead up. It's like, okay, they're on the dance floor. What's going to happen here? But the minute the Chuck Berry song starts, and the minute they start dancing, and the minute they're doing these, I won't say odd dance moves, but certainly unexpected dance moves. Travolta up on his toes like that. The audience just burst into laughter, but not derisive. It was delighted laughter. They were just, this is so, what you're going to say about a Tarantino movie, this is so cool. This is just so cool. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think if I'm thinking about the most memorable scenes for me, it's the lead up to that dancing. It's the whole, everything between Travolta and Thurman, but particularly their conversation at Jack Rabbit Slim's, where they're kind of flirting with each other, but realizing the danger that's inherent in that situation, but resisting it, but finding it irresistible anyway, and just judging how far they can go with each other. I just find that absolutely delightful. An incredible performance by the both of them, and incredible chemistry by the two of them.
And the conversation right from the beginning of the film about the quarter pounder with cheese being known as the Royale or Le Royale.
Yeah.
That bit of dialogue between Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta stays with me, has stayed with me, and of course gets excerpted quite often.
Absolutely does. Should have Samuel L. Jackson have won the Best Supporting Actor Oscar that year? I mean, I think you look at footage of the Oscars that year and he is genuinely disgruntled that Martin Landau picked it up. It's a great performance by Martin Landau and Ed Wood, and I think he deserved the award, but at the same time, I don't know, Sam did some pretty good stuff.
Well, Sam Jackson rarely disappoints, but this film just showcases him so beautifully. He never seems to be overplaying. He never loses control of what he's doing, even if the volume of his voice, goes up, the pitch and the intonation. He's real. He's genuine. When he invokes those biblical words, some of which were made up.
That's true. Not word for word in Ezekiel 24:14 or 25:15 or whatever it was. I think this is a film full of great little moments as well, and I think one of the most provocative for mine is when Samuel Jackson picks up Brett's soda and just finishes it off as like, you're not going to be needing this anymore. It's like, oh, poor Brett.
I've seen Mr. Jackson, who, by the way, had to bill himself as Samuel L. Jackson because there was already a Sam Jackson in the Screen Actors Guild, and you can't have the same name as somebody who's already a working actor. So Sam Jackson was his handle up to that time that he joined the union. He toys with reporters and photographers sometimes on the red carpet and puts on his his mean face, just to see how far he can get away with it. And he can. Believe me, he can. And he's actually a very nice man.
I remember seeing him in Spike Lee's film Jungle Fever a couple of years prior to Pulp Fiction, and just thinking, I don't know who this guy is, but please stay on that side of the screen. I don't want you anywhere near me. You're terrifying.
He gave me a hard time once when I interviewed him for one of the Star Wars sequels. We were up at George Lucas's Skywalker Ranch, and he challenged me with a trivia question that I should have had an instantaneous answer to. And he said, come on, you're supposed to know all this stuff. And he was just goading me. And then he broke into a big smile, and he knows the image that he can project when he wants to, as he does so beautifully in Pulp Fiction. But that's not who he is.
This film is 3 stories in one, and they're not told in order. So, and I remember it, as I said before about the delighted laughter when the dance scene happens. Spoiler alert for a 30-year-old movie, but when Bruce Willis blows away John Travolta, it's people like, wait, what? And then when he reappears later, wait, what? So, pros and cons of the non-linear structure of Pulp Fiction. Leonard, what do you reckon?
It's his bat and his ball. Quentin can play the game any way he wants.
That's true. I mean, I think, again, we've seen a lot of poor imitations of trying to mess with the structure of a story. I think him and maybe Steven Soderbergh are the two who can pull it off pretty well. Out of Sight does it just about as well as Pulp Fiction, I reckon. But you're right. It's his bat, his ball, and he's been, I don't know, playing a pretty solid game for 3 decades. I mean, there's not too many misses in the Tarantino filmography. Or am I just being too much of a fan and giving him too much credit?
I have not been that enthusiastic about his more recent work.
Okay, then.
The Hateful Eight, to me, didn't get to first base. And why he shot it in 70 millimeter and made such a fuss over it about a film that takes place essentially in one room in a cabin.
True.
I don't get that at all. And much as I believe he sincerely does admire Bruce Dern, didn't give him anything to do in that movie. So that was disappointing and kind of annoying. Django Unchained is a movie that goes out of control, goes off the rails for me. These are not my favorite Tarantino films. I really like Pulp Fiction a lot. I really like Jackie Brown a lot.
Yeah.
I really like both Kill Bills, wild as they get. And they do go way over the top, but I find them highly enjoyable. And then, to me, maybe he's too self-aware, I don't know. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a return to more what I associate with Tarantino.
Right.
And I even read the paperback novelization that he wrote.
Same here.
And found it very entertaining.
Yeah. Have you read his Cinema Speculation book?
No, I've dipped into it a little bit.
Yeah. He's got some very valid takes and he's got some very wild takes. We'll talk about that another time. I'm assuming that your paths have crossed more than once. You've presented at the New Beverly, his cinema in LA, and I'm guessing that you probably chatted with him a couple of times over the years. I mean, what's your read on the guy?
I like him, and we've always had very amiable conversations, even when we're agreeing to disagree about a movie, about the merits of a movie that may come up in conversation. But he's so passionate. He really does love movies. And he loves movie making.
Yeah.
And you can't dislike a guy like that.
Absolutely.
He is what you see is what you get. If you were to talk to him tomorrow, you wouldn't be surprised by anything he would say or do.
Yeah.
You say, oh, well, this is what I expected Quentin to be like.
Now, because I've got to go mano a mano with Leonard Maltin, I've got to tell my Tarantino story because he came out to Australia to promote Inglourious Bastards. He brought Christoph Waltz with him, who Christoph Waltz just absolutely charmed me. He could charm the birds out of the trees, that guy. But
yes.
Got my interview with Tarantino. I thought, he and I like so many of the same movies. We're going to become instant best friends. And of course, that didn't happen. I quickly had to put my professional hat back on and start talking about Inglourious Bastards rather than the, movies of the 70s and 80s that I thought we'd both enjoy. But even if we didn't become BFFs, yeah, I've still got utmost respect and admiration for the man. So there we go in that regard of, revealed one of my sad stories about trying to be in with the in crowd. I know. I know. Next time you see him, tell him that his mate from Australia said hi.
Well, I do just the opposite, Guy. I try not to have relationships or cultivate friendships with movie people that I meet, even if I like them a lot, because of the awkwardness of having to critique their work somewhere down the road. I had that backfire on me early enough in my career that I learned my lesson.
Well, to paraphrase Saturday Night Live, that's why you're Leonard Maltin and I'm not. Let's talk about double features just quickly, if you'd like. I was thinking about what would pair well with this, and it would probably take all day because these are both very, very long movies. But if I was going to have a double feature with Pulp Fiction, I would probably put on Paul Thomas Anderson's Boogie Nights. I reckon it's a nice compliment in that they're both second features by, Generation X auteurs. They're both huge swings, and they both really put their filmmakers on the map, and they're both just real virtuoso shows of filmmaking, in my opinion. I'm wondering what you might want to pair with Pulp Fiction.
I would want to put something less spectacular than Boogie Nights with it, because Boogie Nights is a great movie. And I don't think I'd want the two to have to compete with each other.
Yeah.
I'd want to put something good, of course, but not great, perhaps, with it. And something that of a different tone. Maybe even Hard Eight.
Yeah.
Which was Paul Thomas Anderson's first film, with really solid performances and an intriguing, clever screenplay.
Mm. And you've got your Samuel L. Jackson connection with both.
Yep.
There we go. Either that or maybe Bottle Rocket, Wes Anderson's first movie. I mean, that's...
That's another good one, I think, because it's a modest movie.
Yeah.
It's not swinging for the fences.
No, but it's a solid double. I'm probably mixing up my baseball analogies there, given that I've never actually played the game.
Time's up.
Pulp Fiction, 30 years on, timely, timeless, or both.
Timeless, because my wife and I watched it last night, and we were very pleasantly, not surprised, but genuinely pleased that it still played so well.
I'm picturing you like Al Pacino and his wife in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, putting on a Rick Dalton double feature. I think you're right. I think it is timeless. Watching it and thinking about it and talking about it does take me back to 1994, does take me back to this incredibly rich, as I said, fertile, energetic era. But yeah, you could watch Pulp Fiction today and it felt like it was made today. Absolutely.
There's very little to date it, really. If you know your cars, you know that these are not 21st century vehicles. But other than that, there's very little to mark it as being 30 years old. All
right. Well, I'll meet you back here in another 3 decades and we'll talk about it all over again.
We'll go for it again.
Absolutely. Leonard, thanks a lot for your time today, man. It's a great, great pleasure talking about Pulp Fiction, just talking about movies in general, talking about Pulp Fiction in particular, just an absolute joy. It's a royale with cheese of conversations, one might say.
And you just did say it.
All right, guys. Well, that is the latest episode of the Movie Guide Podcast. Thanks for all of your support. Don't forget, you can get in touch with the guys with the Movie Guide Podcast at gmail.com. They will read all of your messages and send them through. And we might do some mailbag in the next episode of the podcast. You can also follow us on social media, the Movie Guide Pod on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you do find this show. But for now, Mr. Davis, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leonard.
So long for now.
And we'll catch you in the next episode of the Movie Guide.